Hey, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Bader Show. I'm your host, Mark Bader. This is episode 452, and we got a great guest for today. A guy I've known for a long time, was a wrestler, but really he's known for the fight game. WEC champion back in the day, coaching, I think the head coach at American Top Team now. It's Mike Brown. Mike, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing?
Feeling great, man. I love the intro, man. You come a long way. Come a long way. That's a beautiful intro.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mike knew me when I first started this job back in 2008. Just a little scared kid running around with the video camera trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. So it's changed a little bit.
It's working, man. It's working.
Thank you.
Great content, brother.
Awesome. All right, yeah, I want to jump into things. Obviously, there's a lot of MMA to talk about, but I know you were a wrestler, and this is FloWrestling, so of course we're going to talk some wrestling. All the success in MMA, but like you were a wrestler. You grew up in New England, a state champ, I think, a college wrestler. How'd you get into wrestling and get into that part of your maybe the start of your combat career?
100%, man. I'm so grateful, that I grew up wrestling. Like pretty much everyone who wrestles feels the same, right? It did so much for me. It molded me. It taught me so much, and it also laid the foundation for fighting, right? It's the most important foundation you can have for mixed martial art fighting. And I just wrestled. I started late. I was a freshman in high school. My best friend wanted to wrestle. I wasn't even sure what it was all about, but I did it because he did it. And, I loved it. I went to high school in Maine, not a hotbed for for wrestling, but I enjoyed it. I loved it. I went on later on to wrestle at Norwich University, a small Division III school in Vermont, and man, it's helped me so much in my life and in my career.
Sweet. And state champ, starting even in Maine, right? You started as a freshman, and to win a state title, any state, that's really impressive. Describe your wrestling style. I feel like you're a hand fighter and a brawler, and more than a slick technician would be my guess.
I mean, I started late, and I lived in Maine, and looking back, it was junk. My stuff was junk. Looking back at it now, I realize I was terrible. But I was like a kind of hand fight guy, and I would try to go upper body, and I would try to muscle some moves, and this is also, I graduated high school in 1993. The level wasn't as high as it is today. Obviously,
Sure.
The techniques evolved quite a bit. And it was a weak area, so that's how I had some success in high school. In college, I started learning how to shoot and developing, more fundamental techniques. And I was more of I used to muscle guys. I was kind of a strong guy. I definitely wasn't a slick guy by any means.
That does not surprise me.
Yeah.
So, to wrestle in college is a huge commitment, right? And you have to be good enough and love it, right? If you're not really into it, it's too hard, even if you're good at it. What made you want to wrestle in college, and when did you decide that?
Well, I had the love, 100%. I was super in love with it, and but it was crazy enough. It was the UFC that brought me there. So I graduated high school in 1993. I took a year off, going nowhere fast, right? Had a crappy apartment with some friends, and just partied and hung out and did nothing. And then I found this UFC 2 VHS tape. It was maybe UFC 3 hadn't happened yet, or maybe it had, I'm not sure. But I got a copy of the UFC 2 VHS tape, and it literally changed my life. I was like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe how awesome this is. And I want to learn how to fight like this. This is unbelievable. And I knew wrestling was a major part of it and very important for that. So I'm like, I'm going to go back to school. I want to, learn more about the human body and yada, yada, yada. I ended up becoming a biology major, and I basically wrestled for the sake of fighting. And, that's kind of what got me there. I went on a tangent a little bit.
No, it's
What was
great.
the original? What was the original question?
I don't know. That's a podcast. They're made for
Okay, all right,
tangents.
all right,
So
all
like
right. I
whatever.
forgot the original question.
We can go in
But
any
yeah,
direction.
that's kind of what got me back. That's what got me to wrestle in college was the UFC.
Hmm.
Like oh man, I want to wrestle again because I knew this was important for fighting, right? But at the time it was heavyweights only, right? This was like early days when it was only open weight tournaments. So I only wanted to do it because I loved it, not because I wanted to ever thought there was a career, make money, or anything like. I just thought it was cool, beautiful, or whatever you might want to say. I thought it was something worth dedicating my life to, and that's what I did.
And are still doing. So
Yeah.
there's no path because there's only heavyweights, and there's probably not even like today. There's regional fights all over the place, right? But like back then, like okay, so you go to college to wrestle because you're interested in this fighting thing, even though there's no future in it. So how do you get your foot in? I don't even know if it was an MMA gym or some people who were trying this thing, and how do you find a fight back then?
So this was a good story too. I was dabbling, like training jujitsu here and there at local spots in Maine. Like it's a karate gym, but twice a week they have a jujitsu class. I mean, very, very low level jujitsu.
Yeah.
Like, this some guy that went to a seminar once is teaching a couple moves he learned.
Yeah.
Pretty much like this. This is in like 1995 or something, right? So I was bouncing around doing like jujitsu at not really accredited places at the time, but I wrestled. So we're rolling around. We're watching UFC. We're rolling around, figuring, we know what it looks like. We're trying to play the UFC, right?
Yeah.
We're pretending. And then my senior year in college, I was on what's now known as the Underground Forum. It used to be called something different. It was like
UG. Yeah.
submissionfighter.com or something. The Underground Forum. And they were looking for fighters in Rhode Island, right? And I wasn't so gung ho about it, but my roommate Gunnar Olsen, great guy, great wrestler, much better wrestler than I was. He was maybe a two-time national qualifier. He won the conference maybe a couple times. New England state champion as well in high school. Very, very great wrestler out of Vermont, Gunnar Olsen.
Yeah.
And he was the one that said, "Hey, let's do this thing. Let's do it." And he kind of got me to do it. Like, all right, yeah, let's go. I had trained more in like jujitsu and boxing than he had, but he was definitely a much better wrestler than I was. But he was the one that really had the gung ho attitude. Let's go get it. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And he kind of led the way, man. And then we went and started fighting in New England way back in like oh 01 was the first fights we had. Yeah.
What do you remember about that first fight? Like, I remember just doing the whole pure fight thing. It had this, especially early on. It's like kind of intimidated, kind of like not sure. All these tough, badass dudes. I was like not a little bit out of my elements. Not wrestling. It's I kind of get it, but I kind of don't know everything that's going on here. And you're going there to make the walk and step in the cage. Like what do you remember about that experience of the first fight night, whatever it was?
I think I was very prepared. I trained a long time before I fought.
Okay.
So like I had been watching and training for like and I grew up wrestling. So I had a lot of wrestling background and I had been training jujitsu and boxing for like 4 or 5 years before I fought.
Yeah.
So I was actually pretty well prepared at that time because I know a lot of people are like yahoos and just jump into it without knowing what they're doing.
Yeah. Tough.
But I actually had a decent base for a guy who didn't fight. I was also 25 years old, so it was also a little late to be starting.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Did you win?
So that's why I was prepared. And the first fight, of course, it's a bit, like euphoric and kind of crazy because it is different than wrestling.
Yeah.
But I was confident in the walk. I was confident. I knew I was better than the guy, but you still get performance anxiety. And it's a fist fight. There's a lot on the line. You can get hurt out there for real. So of course there are nerves, but it was different. It was fun.
Not a poke in your personal life. Did you get in fights growing up? A lot, a little, not really ever. And if so,
No,
how far, similar or different was this?
not really. I wasn't in. I mean, not maybe a couple, but not really. I
You're a
was not
nice
a
guy.
fighter by any means.
Yeah.
But I was always fascinated with fighting. I've told this story a few times, but I've always been like the guy always pushing my way to the
To it.
front line to watch the fight. I was always that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a small guy growing up, right? And
Yeah.
like, it's not like I was ever picked on or anything. I was like the little guy you wouldn't even want to pick on me,
Yeah.
right? I
Oh, shit.
got along with guys pretty well. But no, I was not a guy that was in fights by any means, but I was always fascinated by it and always interested in like talking about, when you're young, like who could beat up who. Do you
Mhm.
think, the high school tough guys or even before, like, hey, you think that guy could take him? I was always into those weird conversations for some reason.
That's great.
That intrigued me for some reason.
Okay. So when did it go from a hobby that from the underground forum and a fight in Massachusetts to like, I want to make this my career?
I mean, it was slow and gradual. I did one just to say I did it, maybe,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to do it once, and then after one, it was like, well, I want to do maybe five, because after five, I could say that I was a fighter
Mm-hmm.
if I did five, and then you do five, and you're like, well, I'm pretty close to actually making it to the UFC at this point. Why don't I do a couple more? Maybe I can get into the UFC. And then you get into the UFC, and then you're like, well, I think that, well, it's getting more developed now, and there's world rankings. Like I think I got a shot at becoming very highly ranked or becoming a world champion. And small goals led to big goals, and that's kind of how it happened.
And I think it was September, or maybe that got canceled, and you were fighting against Uriah for the belt in 2008, I believe it was. Uriah is the champion. He's kind of the poster boy, right? He's this face, and I don't know. There's a lot more to be known about him at the time than there was about you and odds makers and everything, right? Probably think, okay, Uriah's going to win. How did you feel going into that fight? You're like, no, I'm going to smash this guy and I am going to take his belt, or you're like, I'm not sure. Let's see how it goes.
At the time, every fight is crazy, every fight is tough, but at the time I was confident. I was very confident. I trained at what I thought was the best team in the world at the time, and I still believe that. And we had a lot of very good small guys, like world-class lightweights. So I knew how I stacked up against the world, and these
Sure.
were lightweights, not featherweights. I was competing as a featherweight, but we had guys like Jesus Cavalcante,
Mm-hmm.
who had won a couple K1 mixed martial art tournaments, really big at the time. K1 MMA, like K1 Heroes. We had Marcus Aurelio, who had just submitted like Takanori Gomi, the number one lightweight in the world. So we had really good lightweights at our gym. So I knew, like, dude, I'm with these guys. I'm also one of the best guys in the world, and I was confident, and I knew I could compete with anybody. And I looked at Uriah's game, his game, and I thought I was a bit bigger, stronger, and I could compete with him at any level. So I knew it was going to be a good fight.
Describe beating you. You hit him with the. I think he came with the flying knee, or so he came forward and you stuck him with a. I don't know if it was a right or a left, but he's out. That's it.
He tried an elbow. He tried like an
Oh,
elbow
spinning.
at a really bad angle.
Okay.
So I hit him with like overhand right, which is pretty strong punch. So
Yeah,
he got hurt.
that was wild. I was actually there and up in the stands. It's like, holy shit, he did it. What is that feeling like? That realization, man. It was a hobby. I went to college to wrestle to try this, and now here, holy crap, I'm world champ.
No, I mean it changed my life, and it was it wasn't overnight by any means. It was a long process. I was very experienced. I was a veteran. It wasn't like I had a only at that point I was had over 20 fights. So I was not a rookie by any means, and he was like 20 something and one. So
Mm-hmm.
he was very good and kind of the poster boy of the organization, very marketable guy, and he did a lot for the weight class. So, I was very grateful to be in that position to get an opportunity like that. And no, it did so much for me. He's a great fighter, obviously UFC Hall of Famer, and that fight did so much for me, and I'm happy that it went down like it did.
Yeah, man. One thing that's so different from today's world is like the purse. You didn't make shit, right? Like what was it?
Insane, yeah. So the purse was like at the time, it was my second fight in the WEC contract. My first fight was Jeff Curran, who had just fought for the belt, who was a very tough guy, had a lot of
Yeah, I
fights,
know
had like
Jeff.
40 something fights, maybe 50 fights. And I made 9,000 to show and 9,000 to win, right? Uh, and that was legitimately the number one spot in the world. Any rankings you looked at anywhere in the world, that was it. Like whoever was the champ there at the WEC was the number one guy. 9-9. I ended up getting the knockout of the night bonus, right? With like they have the UFC bonuses, but it was a little smaller, 7,500 at the time. So yeah, the money was not good. Every generation complains about the money, but it's like the guys before you made less.
Yeah,
So
a
you
whole
got to
lot
be
less.
grateful of what you got.
Sure. And like you said, and I assumed, right? And it wasn't for the money, but this beating him at that stage, knocking him out, it changed my life, right? It kind of sent you on a different course, whatever that meant, right? And for better, I
Mhm.
would imagine. Um, but then then like every fight, you get the belt, and then at some point you don't have the belt, and then your career goes on, and usually, so I want to wait. Those what are those years like after you have the belt, right? For you, and I'm sure it's just you were on this amazing high, right? You had all, and then all of a sudden it's gone, and you lose as many fights as you win, and like, is that tough to handle mentally and emotionally? Like I was at the top, and now probably some young kids at the top, and I'm a couple steps slower than I used to be. And does that sit okay with me, or does that bug me?
Yeah. So for me, I was pretty banged up. I mean, I won the belt. Like I told you, I started fighting at 25,
Yeah, it's
so I was
crazy.
already a little bit older, right? I won the belt at like 33. So obviously, you don't have a lot of time left, right? You got a couple years. I held the title for 1 year. I defended it twice, lost to Jose Aldo,
Right.
and then I lost. I mean, I bounced back. I won one. I lost one. And it
Yeah.
kind of went like that until the end. And I think, like a couple weeks from my 38th birthday when I finally when I had my last fight. And what I felt like was my chin had gotten weaker. My lap. I just had a cervical neck fusion, right? I've had many neck problems dating back to college wrestling. I had neck surgery in college also.
Okay.
So had a lot of neck issues. I had a fusion in 2012. I came back, had one more fight. I was about 38 years old, and I got knocked out in like under a minute. And then I knew, you know what? It's time to go. I can't hang on to this anymore. I don't want to be the guy that hangs on. Maybe I did hang on too long, but I don't want to be hanging on way too long, right? I knew
Yeah.
that was my cue to exit. Time to go.
When did you make that decision? When did that pop in your head when you woke up that night or in the next days and weeks?
I
Months?
mean, no, actually, I actually tried to fight again. I had neck issues because I just had a fusion, and like I would have problems. It would kind of come and go. I had another fight scheduled. I ended up pulling out because my neck gave me problems again. And then once I pulled out, I was like, okay, what am I doing? That's enough. And then I just stayed full time coaching at American Top Team.
But I can see how it would be tough or how it would be easy to hang on, tough to let it go. Like, this is my life. This is what I do. I get ready for fights and then I fight. And of course, that window is eventually going to close. But let me
And
get.
also because the money wasn't so good then, you needed to fight for the money. It
Oh,
wasn't like we didn't get rich, right?
yep.
Like we couldn't pull out of fights because we needed to fight because we needed the paycheck. It's like not we didn't have hundreds of thousands in the bank or millions in the bank like these like guys might today. We were living paycheck to paycheck a lot of times.
Yeah. So then you just transition to coach, but obviously so many athletes, so many fighters go through ATT. They can't all transition to be coaches. How did that happen?
I've always been like fascinated with the sport and a technique guy and really into technique and
Uh-huh.
I'm not the most social guy, so I'm like maybe even not the best at communicator or like this, but I've always been really into the sport, hardworking, and like really into technique and stuff. So I think kind of that's my stronger attributes. And I don't know, it was a good fit for the gym, and at the time, the head coach was Laborio, and he always, made it known to me. Him and Dan always made it known to me that we'd like to keep you on, and as a coach. So that's important, having what's next, right?
Mm-hmm.
People really hang on when they don't know what to do with themselves, but when you have what's next, that helps quite a bit.
No, that's a great point. And there's another guy I want to bring up. I want to talk about. I want to talk about a few people, but I want to start with Steve Mocco. Right, he's coaching at ATT. But before he got there, how aware did you know of Steve when he was an athlete competing? Did you see him? He had this myth about him, this mysterious kind of mystique, like this guy's crazy and scary. Like, what was your first impressions? Maybe before you met him when he was coaching. When did he first come on your radar as a wrestler, I would assume? And what were your thoughts about this crazy guy?
No, so of course, dude. So I grew up wrestling, so I have so much respect for wrestling and high level wrestlers because I know what it takes.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I went to a Division III school, and I didn't even start. I was like a backup. And like my friends, my roommates were like national qualifiers, maybe All-Americans. And I thought these guys were so amazing. These are like D3 guys, D3 All-Americans, D3 New England champs. And I thought these guys were so good. I just know the levels to wrestling are crazy to me, right? Like because then you got the D1 guys, the D1 All-Americans, then the national champs, then the guys that are in the finals every year. It blows my mind how many levels there are to wrestling.
Yeah.
But I grew up watching what was it? What was the documentary? The Season.
Yeah, about Iowa on ESPN. That was
Right? No, so
great.
I watched The Season, all that when I was in college, or maybe I don't remember when that came out. But no, I knew who Steve was for sure. So when Steve came, he was a huge addition to the team. I was actually helping him out, coaching him at the end of his career. I actually cornered him for his last fight.
Wow. So he came down to be a fighter at first, right?
Yes, he had like 6 or 7 fights, and then had some neck problems, and then I think because he was a little older when he started too.
Yep.
So he started a little bit older, and he had some neck issues, so he didn't have a long career, but I think that I started coaching when he's like midway through when he was here or something, and then but by the end though I went with him for his last fight. He did great. He knocked the guy out. I think it was his last one. Yeah. But then he was having health issues, and it he kind of pulled the plug on it.
Yeah, I mean,
But he's an amazing coach, so it's great for the team, great for his kids and all that jazz.
yeah. If your body doesn't agree, and you got to listen to your body, but whatever. But man, that guy just felt like he was built for MMA. I mean, obviously built for wrestling, but like just this mean, scary dude who always seemed to have a black eye and like
The temperament, and you got the temperament, and he's got also the conditioning, dude. Like the most important weapon you can have in mixed martial arts and fighting is that gas tank, dude. And Mocco's not normal, man. His conditioning is incredible.
yeah, off the charts, I would say.
Off the charts, right?
Another guy, he's new, right? But probably the last phenom from the wrestling world to transition over is Bo Nickal. And, a lot of hype behind him. He got slowed down this last one, but I think people forget that he's like 7 fights in, and he's in the UFC. I don't know. What's your assessment, right? He did great. He had one setback. I think RDR's, he's really good. Where do you see Bo at in his career right now early on?
Well, obviously he's not a normal guy by any means,
Of
right?
course.
He picks stuff up very quickly, and the way he moved up very quickly is not normal, right? You don't, especially today's day and age, it's a completely different world than it used to be. There used to be a day where, I mean, this is like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, or something, where you could be like a world champion in wrestling and then a UFC champion a year later,
Yeah.
right? Those days are long gone, right? Like the sports have evolved so much, they're so different from one another now. But he is an anomaly where he has able to still very quickly move fast in the sport. Like, I don't know how many fights he had, maybe one or maybe one fight, then he was the contender,
It's crazy.
right? And then he had like two fights in contender, and then I was in the UFC, right? This is not normal by any means. This is very difficult. Guys are so well rounded. Everybody knows how to like the rest enough wrestling that you need to defend it within this our sport
Yeah.
because everything is different. And he's definitely a special guy. But they are moving him very fast, and you're speeding towards the sun like that. Bad things can happen. And he had a bump in the road, but I'm confident he'll be back. But he's definitely not a normal guy and a special athlete. And like we said before, like the levels to wrestling are incredible. The guy had 3 losses in college. College wrestling is so damn tough. It blows my mind.
You talk about them moving him really fast, which obviously they have. Was it too fast, or is it okay to go up and kind of get kind of beat up like that, or is it like, man, maybe he should, looking back, hindsight being 2020, maybe pump the brakes just a little bit?
Well, I mean, I'd rather see it slower, but the problem is he's also marketable and people like him. He's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they're going to want something for that money, right? Like you're not going to get slow development when you're making really good money, right?
Yeah.
They're going to push you, test you, and give the crowd what they want, right? They want to see you in battles and struggles or whatever it might be.
Yeah. You want to see him taking on the next best guy.
Right, like they're really pushing you fast because you're making good money. So that's his situation. It's good and bad because he's making good money, but you could slow it down, which I think would be better, right? Take like a normal person. Fighting experience is so crucial, and there's no substitution for it. There's no, and he's also a guy who was finishing people very quickly in fights.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even getting that good of fight experience because it's like 30 seconds you're done, 1 minute you're done. It's like that. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it slower, but we're past that.
Okay. I don't that I know of. He doesn't have another fight lined up. When would you like to see him fight again? Or when's ideal, I guess?
The thing is, he has another baby coming soon, right? So he's got personal life stuff going on, right? He's after the fight, he came back to ATT for a bit, and then now his wife is getting close. I'm not sure the exact date, so he's back home with his wife.
Got it.
So he's not at ATT training, but he's got family stuff going on. So we'll see when he gets through that. When I've never had a child, but I know it's takes all your time and the sleeping and all this jazz. So I know he's going to need a little bit of time.
Sure. Okay. There's another aspect of the sport that's interesting. Is like, you're training these guys, and sometimes you've worked with this guy and this guy, and now they're going to fight, right? And you're all in on your guy, but maybe there's something in the back of your head that, I have a connection to this other guy, however it goes, right? And I'm going to bring up Masvidal and ask him, because I know Ben, I think, was at ATT for a little bit. I assumed you guys worked together in whatever degree, but now your job is to knock his ass out, right? In which George did very quickly. One, do you feel bad now? Because that guy can't even walk.
I mean, of course.
I'm kidding. You did your job.
I mean, but this was years ago, but also like Ben came to our gym, and he didn't train at our gym very, very much. He might have been there for a month, and I always liked Ben. He's obviously a guy who I look up to for his wrestling pedigree and what he's accomplished. And he was also just joining the sport. Like he literally was uh, maybe his first 6 months of training or something like that when he was at ATT, but he wasn't there long. He was training out in like either Missouri or whatever, and then he moved to Rufus Sport.
Mm-hmm.
So he was never really like an ATT guy,
Gotcha.
even though he was there for a small period. So I never got to know him very close, right? Like I know who he is. I've chatted with him. I know him, but not like that. No, but that was a crazy fight, dude. I felt bad and a little bit weird when that knockout happened because it was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was one of the worst I had seen. So that's always scary. Yeah, but no, I look up to Ben in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Has it ever happened where maybe Ben wasn't a great example of an ATT guy, but he's a great example of a crazy ending. But like, have there been times when maybe it was two guys that were closer who had trained, and you got to either corner one or train one, but like I like this other guy a lot. We're friends, but my job is to help this guy kick his ass.
No, it was this weekend.
Oh, really?
So actually, five times I've had fighters ATT versus ATT like that. And a couple of weekends ago, it was an unbelievable fight. It was Chris Duncan versus Mateusz Rozbecki, right? Did you see this fight by chance?
No.
It was like fight of the year candidate.
Okay, I heard about
it. Insane fight. Both bloody messes, like both needed so many stitches. Rebecca's eye was completely shut. And they were literally living room to room in the ATT dorms. The whole camp. Like one guy in one room, next wall over is your opponent. The whole camp. First time we've had that. This was a couple of weeks ago. They just fought. Like really unique and insane. And Mateusz used to come to my classes like regularly. And I think that he knew I was going to corner Duncan, so he stopped kind of coming to the classes midway through the camp. But it was a weird feeling, because, I like the guy and he's a teammate. So it was a very unique situation. Not something that I like.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Sounds
to
awful.
be honest.
I mean, wrestling,
it's terrible.
It'd be bad enough, right? But
right.
We're trying to hurt each other out with not punching and kicking, but MMA, you're trying to actually hurt them.
Really hurt them. And I've always been I want the guy, when I'm in the room, I want this guy to help me as much as he can, right? I don't like the idea of guys fighting one another because then you don't want to help each other, right? Why do I want to help this guy if he might be a future opponent? You don't want to give up any technique you got, any secrets you might have, right? I like it where you're an open book. And this guy is my brother, and I want to do anything I can to make him better, right? I think that's a better environment than like everyone's the potential enemy. But we got a very big team, and it's possible, in certain situations.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, going back to you can talk Mocco, Nickal, Askren, like these NCAA wrestlers coming over, right? We know wrestling's always done really well, but it feels like, and maybe, I don't pay as close attention to MMA and the UFC as I maybe once did, but it feels like you used to have more NCAA All-Americans and more NCAA champions like coming in and making noise and being hot and holding belts. And, you also had the Jordan Burroughs era of wrestling where these amazing wrestlers stuck with wrestling. Maybe that has something to do with it, how many multiple-time world champs that we had in the last quad or two. But do you feel like there's less NCAA All-Americans and champions dominating? I don't think any NCAA wrestlers hold belts now, do they? I think there's guys that use wrestling, right?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you why. It's more nuanced. The sports have evolved away from one another, right? Like the details are so important, and the training has gotten better. So you don't need to learn all that. Like you learn just enough wrestling or the right type of wrestling to nullify what a guy who's been wrestling his whole life has done. right? The ability to get back to your feet, the get-ups, the defense, the takedown defense has gotten so much better. And that's why it's just so much more difficult to do things like this. I mean, that's the reason. But even though sometimes there's guys like that, wrestling base is so important. Like guys that you might not think of necessarily as wrestlers, but like say like good examples are like Demetrius Johnson and like John Jones. These guys were like high school wrestlers. They didn't go on and have college careers, but they built that wrestling base, that, you know, basic like wrestling foundation for balance and coordination that's made them a couple of the best fighters that ever lived.
Interesting. It's almost like if you are a high level NCAA wrestler and then you go chase the Olympic dream for too long, maybe that's, and then you want to come like DC did it maybe, but that was 10 something years ago. Like you can't really, and I guess Henry did it too, though he didn't go to NCAA wrestling, but like it's hard to do the college wrestling thing, chase the Olympic dream for a quad or longer, and then be like, all right, now I'm going to go fight because what you just said, I guess.
Exactly. But and also Henry was very young, right? Henry did one cycle, maybe he went a little bit more after.
He didn't even go to college.
Right. So he was super young when he was done. So he had plenty of time to work on the MMA. I do work with a guy. I don't know, Rinya Nakamura. Do you know this guy?
No.
Japanese fighter. So Rinya Nakamura was, he just fought a couple of weeks ago on the same card as Chris Duncan that I was telling you about. And he was, is it U23, right?
Yep, there's a U23 Worlds, yep.
U23, he was a world champion, U23 world champion.
Okay.
So very high level wrestler. Mm-hmm. And now he is like 10-1 in mixed martial arts. Great prospect, and uses his wrestling ability to dominate his opponents.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking this through as I'm talking, I'm going to contradict myself and say, man, well, Dagestan, they are like having this 10 years ago, it wasn't a thing, although in wrestling forever, we've known that's those little mountain region. But these guys are coming over and doing great, right? Or do you think they're...
Right, but what age are they transitioning from wrestling to like a Sambo or mixed martial arts, right? They're probably transitioning. Maybe they start wrestling as youths and maybe higher, but at what age are they moving on to like a more of a combat sport, or not combat sport, but like a kind of an MMA type of game? It's important to start young, right? And now the training is better when you got these younger guys training everything together. It's just better. It's blending. It's its own sport, right? It's its own entity, and the methods the coaches are better right now. Also, in the older generations, like say my generation, most of the coaches didn't fight.
They're just figuring it out.
Because it was because there was nobody that had experience. Like there wasn't enough time for people to have careers retire. Right. So now you have a lot of guys that are retired fighters now coaching and passing on the MMA knowledge, the little details, the tricks, or whatever it might be. But it used to be, okay, this guy wrestled, this guy, that's not any good. I shouldn't say it's not good, but it's not optimal, right? Like imagine a guy teaching you how to wrestle that never wrestled, right? I mean, it happens, but not at the highest level.
Right. What would be the optimal? Say I'm 12, 15 years old or something like that, and I'm just getting into wrestling, but I know that one day I want to fight in the UFC. And maybe college wrestling's on my radar or anything else, but like what would be, if you're like, all right, Bader, you really want to do this? Here's how I think you should approach it. What would you tell me?
I love it. Yeah. Wrestle, right? Get the competition, get as best you can at wrestling. Maybe at the same time, like on the off season, play around with some striking, like learn the fundamentals and kind of dip your toe in the water with just when you're younger, learning the coordination of punching, slipping, maybe even some light sparring. Could be boxing, kickboxing, whatever, but just so you're slowly developing that, but your focus is on the wrestling, like hard wrestling, a lot of matches, and see how high you can get in that world. I mean, a great example is Pico, right? Aaron Pico, tremendous fighter.
What do you think? People like think he should have kept wrestling, and okay, he wasn't a world champ right away, or still hasn't been. But what do you think about Aaron Pico's career, where he's at, and where he's going?
I think he's made more money what he's doing than he would have made in wrestling. I'm sure he's made a boatload of money, and I'm sure he's going to make a boatload more.
Yeah. What do you think about his? He's got a.
And he was rushed a bit. I think he could have. Like if he was, I know he wanted to. He's a guy that wants big challenges. Had he gone a little bit slower, his record would be a little cleaner and maybe potentially make a little more money or whatever. But I think he was a guy who likes big challenges. So I get it.
I think you're right. And you're bringing up the money, and it's definitely a part of it. Describe watching this industry explode 2000, 1995, whenever you're in college, and your first fight, and you're okay, now you're WEC champ, you're not really still making much. Like, when did you see it open up and become like, holy shit, these people are making millions?
I mean, it was a long and gradual, right? It was very slow. It just kept slowly going up, and like shit, like we're saying, I made 9-9 for that fight. But now this past few years, the past like maybe 5 years, I've been with so many fighters that have made over $1 million in a night. Many fighters. This is like not even a big deal anymore. I had $1 million night. Like the guys like Masvidal, Dustin, Kayla, right? $1 million night is they've done it many times. This is. And there's more to add to that list, or many people that made like hundreds of thousands, 400, 500, 600,000, and it's like, man, whatever, not a big deal. When I was coming up, I never had a night where I made $100,000, but now they're having $1 million nights.
Was there ever a moment, a fight or whatever, when you saw, you're like, you said it's a slow burn, right? It was gradual and just you got 9-9 and never made 100, and these guys are where they are today. Was there ever you're like, I see this as maybe UFC got a TV deal, or I don't know. Was there ever anything that like, whoa, this is going to slingshot this industry, or this thing is going to be like, on par with pro sports? Which,
what's crazy? When I first laid my eyes on it, I thought, this could, or there should be the biggest sport, though. Like in my eyes, I'm like, how is this not? Like to me, it doesn't compare to any sport. I don't know if it ever will. I wasn't sure, but I'm like, this is the sport, right? This is what it's all about, right? Like two guys going in there, you lock the door, you see who can come out, right? That's what sports are about. Not like, oh, I kicked his ass. No. Lock you in a room, see who's going to kick whose ass. That's what it's all about. And I always thought it could be, I wasn't certain it was going to be. But yeah, it was never a clear moment. I think it was just gradual, man. And just one foot in front of the other, a small incremental moves. And here we are. They just signed a big deal, right, with Paramount.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget how many billions of dollars, like 7 billion or something like that.
Insane.
Yeah. Wow.
Looking at it the other way, maybe it's a $7 billion deal, but was there ever a point when you look back and you're like, I can't believe we're where we are?
I think it's, with like guys like Masvidal and Dustin, like, wow. They were making big pay-per-view numbers. They were big stars.
Yeah.
And making multiple millions in a night, 4, 5, 6 million, whatever it might be. Like, damn, man, we've come far, right? And these guys were both had like rough childhoods. They didn't make money growing up. That never in their wildest dreams were they going to make that kind of money, right? Like I did better than my parents did. Right. I mean, I didn't do anything. I made a little bit of money, but these guys just did so much, I'm sure more than they could ever imagine in their life. Same with Kayla, Ioane, and Jacek, Amanda Nunes, all these fighters were making $1 million in a night or more, much more.
Sure. You mentioned earlier, you're like, man, I respect wrestlers so much. I did it. I understand it. Like, how much do you pay attention to wrestling, whether it's NCAA wrestling or, the senior level where the world team's set and they're going to compete the world championships here in September? Like, do you keep, obviously, I know you keep your thumb on the MMA pulse, but how much do you, or don't you follow wrestling?
I mean, it's hard because there's so much MMA now to keep track of. I mean, basically, I get excited every year for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Obviously, I watch that every year, and then I also, sometimes I'll try to like find out what's going on at like the senior nationals.
Yeah.
What they're even actually, I say that I actually try to look at the high school a little bit, like each year, the tournament time, like what states, is anybody from my home state doing well? I kind of follow that stuff, like, but the only thing I watch really is the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
Like I'll watch that every year. I try to watch all the rounds, as much rounds as I can on my TV, like maybe from the quarters on. And I've been to watch as a fan a couple times.
You ever eyeball guys at the NCAA wrestling tournament and think this guy'd make a good fighter?
I mean, a little bit, but it's not really, because it's at the end of the day, you need to really want it, right? It's got to be a passion.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, you think I'd be good at it? Yeah, I'll try it. No, you need to really want to do it. Same with wrestling. It's like, oh, this guy'd be a good wrestler. No, he has to want to wrestle, right? Like you're not going to be a good wrestler without like loving it.
You nailed it, and you know it as well as anyone.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting closer to the end of the line here. I got just a couple little questions I like to do at the end with guests, and usually it's wrestling related, but for this one we'll make it MMA. I call this wins and whoopins, right? So like all the fights you ever had in your whole entire career, one win that stands out as memorable. It could have been a title shot. It could have been I was getting my ass kicked and I came back. It could have been that first fight in Massachusetts or whatever. Just like one win for whatever reason that stands out as memorable. And then just an ass whooping. And everybody's taking an ass whooping and has a story about, coming off the mat.
I mean, I guess the biggest win was the first Faber win, right? That was the first title, first WEC title fight that I ever won. Really big deal, really important in my life. And the losses, dude, those ones all of them you remember more, right? Those are always more memorable. It's almost like gambling. Winning is, you win, okay, cool. But the losses always kill you, right? And it's kind of like that. They all hurt so bad. I mean, probably the worst beating I took was probably Jose Aldo, who was like a level ahead of me for sure. And that was a tough fight. Another one I had early in my career that really bothered me was I lost to Joe Lazan when I was young in a small show where I kind of gassed out in the third and got subbed. That one like broke my heart. Yeah.
All these years later.
Gas wasn't my strength, unfortunately, and it's the most important thing you can have in fighting. And I never had a great gas tank, unfortunately.
Talk me through.
But I would say,
go ahead.
You go. That was all I had.
You just said like I'm fighting Jose Aldo, and man, he was just a level ahead. And like, did you know that going in, or what's it like discovering that and being like, oh shit, I'm locked in a cage, and this guy's better than me, but I just got to stay in here and do my best.
No, I thought I was going to kill him. To be honest,
Did you?
At the time, I was the champ. I was #1 guy. I hadn't lost in years. I felt great. He's a good striker. I've beat a bunch of good strikers.
That makes it even worse. Once you're in there and you realize.
And then, he's hitting me hard. He's doing good. And his takedown defense was so good, right? Like I got a good hold of him a couple times. And I quit. He's got some of the best takedown defense in the sport, right? Yeah. He's known for it, right? And, I was trying to take him down. I get good locks on him, but like, dude, he wasn't budging. And it was like, he hits hard. He's got a lot of good, he's very fast and explosive and was just dinging me up. And it was just a real tough fight. But I didn't think that going in. I was very confident. I thought I was going to win. I couldn't have, I don't think I've never gone into, maybe I did. I could say that once. But maybe one time I ever went into a fight thinking it was going to be hard to win. And that was in 1990, maybe 4, I fought Genki Sudo in the UFC, right? Like a one-off at lightweight. I'm not a lightweight, right? I was always a featherweight. But at the time, just for the opportunity to say I was in the UFC, you kind of did it for the chance.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew it was going to be hard fight to win. I was still living in Maine. That was probably the only fight I ever went into thinking like, this is going to be hard to win. I felt like a big underdog.
Okay. Back to the Aldo match. When you realize this is tougher than I thought, or when you realize this guy's a level ahead of me, how do you, like, in a wrestling match, it's like, oh, this sucks. This guy's going to put points on me. In a fight, you're like, I might get knocked out. I might get embarrassed. Or like, I'm getting punched and kicked in the, how do you, I don't know, mentally,
I mean,
what do you
just swing hard, you know, like you just like, well, I can always hurt him.
Yeah.
Right. I knew I had a puncher's chance. You know, I had power.
Yep.
That's one thing I had.
For sure.
So I knew I could hurt anybody with one shot. That's my ticket out.
Yeah. All right.
And I mean, with adrenaline, you don't feel anything, right? Like you never feel pain or anything in there. You're just fighting, right? I mean, look at remember when John Jones fought Chael Sonnen? Remember he had like a compound fracture on his big toe. He didn't even know it.
Until after the fight, he sat down. He
was fighting, right? He wins the fight, and then he looks at his foot and like almost faints because he realizes, oh my God, I have a compound fracture on my big toe. Didn't even know it.
That's insane.
Right? You don't feel pain. You just adrenaline is so high, you don't feel pain in there.
Wow. That's insane because all it is violence.
Yeah, it's just chaos, right? I've had fights where I fought Honey Yaya at the end. Again, my gas tank wasn't good. I was exhausted at the end. I lost the decision. I gassed. It was terrible. At the end, I'm like, dying in the locker room. And I'm like, my finger I grabbed my finger. It felt kind of funny. And it was bending the wrong way. And I'm like, what the hell? Like my finger was bending the wrong way. I torn a bunch of ligaments in my finger. I needed surgery, obviously, to repair it. But I didn't even know it happened. It was like, wow, that happened? When was that? Like my finger was gone.
That's insane.
So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Oh wow. Is there time to think in there, or it's all reaction?
I mean, just like in wrestling.
Yeah. Okay.
Same exactly as wrestling.
All right.
No difference there.
Fair enough.
Because I think just adrenaline's higher. I mean, you probably have adrenaline in wrestling also.
For sure.
Less is going to hurt you in wrestling, but fighting, it's like tenfold probably.
Yeah, the next level. Okay. All right, last one. This is an easy question, maybe. Who's your all-time favorite wrestler?
All-time favorite wrestler, Dave Schultz. Go old. I'm an older guy.
Yeah.
Schultz front headlock. I have one fight win with a Schultz front headlock.
Do you really?
In mixed martial arts. Yeah. But it's still my best sub today. Front head. Front head choke. Looks like a front head. Choke him out.
Where was this fight? Early, middle, late in career?
It was not mid career. Not a high level guy, but straight front headlock. Choke him out with the front head. Guy that I beat was Rocky Long, guy from Texas.
Okay.
Not a super high level guy, but in the gym it's my number one sub, and I've put many world class fighters to sleep with it.
Dave Schultz passed in '96. There's no internet. Like, how did you learn technique from Dave Schultz? Was it word of mouth? Was it a videotape? Was it? My
high school coach was good friends with him, and he used to come and do seminars at our school.
Schultz did?
Dave Schultz, yeah. I have an autographed poster of him in my bedroom right now, or in my office.
Yeah. That is awesome.
Dave Schultz, up in Maine. Come up to Maine. Ted Reese was my high school coach, who has now passed away, but he was a great coach. When
Schultz is coming doing these camps or whatever at your high school up in Maine, Had you was this after you saw that VHS of UFC 2 and you thought
No.
No, it was the other
No,
one.
like
You learned the
I
choke
just liked
phase.
him back then because he was like choking guys, and I had met him and a bunch of times, and he was an old technician, but no, the front headlock thing I developed
Okay.
later in life,
Yeah.
but I would say he's my favorite
All
old
right.
school guy.
Hell yeah. Well, that's a great answer. And I think a great way to kind of bring this one to a close, Mike. Really appreciate you coming on here. It's been awesome. I love picking your brain. You're an awesome guy. You're a great coach. And yeah,
Well,
I'll leave
thanks,
you.
Mark, for having me. Great seeing you again, brother.
That was it. Leave you with the last word. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We'll look forward to you keeping up the great work as the coach over at ATT.
Thanks. Congrats on all your success, man.
Thank you. You too. Have a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. All right, folks. That's going to do it. Mike Brown over at American Top Team. Always great talk with him. We'll see you guys later.